Well, thank you so much, Emma, for joining us this lovely morning. We're doing a bit of a series at the moment, as you'd be aware, where we are interviewing each of our incredible FFLP team members. And we are so lucky today to be joined by another one of the founders, Emma. So thank you so much again for making time.
Oh, of course. I'm so excited for this. It's amazing what you get from people when you start having conversations. So I'm all for it.
It's so true. So, to get us started on those conversations, can you please share a little bit about your background and what has inspired you to take the path that you are on right now?
Oh, that's such a big question, Ames. So what does life look like right now for me? Well, I guess career-wise, I am the owner of Huddle Creative, so a marketing agency. I have a small team of 6 people. We work remotely and here in Perth. I also am a co-owner of an online dive shop and diving business. I've been involved in the diving industry for a long time. And of course, one of the founders and managers of the Future Female Leaders program. So it's funny because when you think of all those things individually, they sound like they're all quite separate and different things. But in actual fact, what I do at the end of the day is grow businesses, and marketing is a big part of that. So business management, strategy, and marketing, it all kind of just falls under that same umbrella in different industries and different passions. And when I look at what inspired me to go down this path, I've always loved business, always. I think I started my first business when I want to say 10 years old. I decided that I could break up the books that I was given with lots of information and facts about different wildlife. And I thought, if I break up them into separate pages, I can sell each page and I can make more money that way. Went door knocking to all my neighbors and at school, and I think I was charging $1 or something like that. It was that was probably my first business venture. And I've been really fortunate to be around a lot of people who have been in business in one way or another growing up. And yeah, just got it. As soon as I got into hospitality, I was sort of managing, or duty manager, and managing people and businesses, and just went from there. And funny, because when I left school, I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Do I want to be a full-time scuba diving instructor, or I don't know. But the one thing I figured was, like, I'll run a business no matter what. So I'll go and study business, and that's what I did as my first field of studies, was to do that. And hey, somebody said to me the other day, what does that? Was that helpful? Do you actually use your degree? I was like, well, I'm running 3 businesses now, so yeah, I'd say so.
No, that's always good. It's great when we can use our degrees.
Yeah.
So, what do you think that that passion is that really kind of drives that, like, entrepreneurial mindset for you? Because it seems from a very young age you've always really been interested in, like, owning and running businesses. Is it just that you love the growth? Do you love the creativity? Is it the independence? Like, what is that passion that really drives you to want to set up all these successful companies?
It's a good question, because I actually had to do a lot of deep thinking and processing myself to figure that out a few years ago, when things they're not easy when you start something from scratch. And I had to go, why am I doing this? Like, why is this important to me? And the number one thing for me is freedom. That's what it is. So freedom to come up with new ideas, freedom to try something new, freedom to work with who I want to work with in a way that I want to work. So by creating new things, it's my choice, and I have that creative freedom, I think, is the big one. I think at the end of the day, that is really what keeps me doing what I do, rather than just going back into a commercial kind of job or career. I would be taking away that freedom.
No, that's so fair. Um, so I suppose then your career journey, because you've mentioned a few different things. You've mentioned you went to university, you studied business, then you mentioned that you were considering being a full-time scuba instructor as well, and then you have the dive shop and the online dive store, and then we've got Huddle Up. So what was the order of everything? How, like, if you could just take us through your whole career journey from maybe your time in uni, or you can go back to high school studies if you want to now.
Yeah, cool. So high school, I've always been a creative. I loved art. I loved photography. They were my favorite subjects, even drama and that sort of thing as well. So I've always loved that. But it's interesting because it wasn't until my late 20s that I realized that I was making a lot of my life decisions based on what I should do. And so the choosing with my head, not my heart, and not understanding how to tap into my gut and my intuition. So I thought that I should go and get a real job. And so that's how I ended up. I went to uni. I kind of always thought I would go to uni. For a little while there, I was weighing up different options. I thought, should I be a teacher? Should I work in food technology? I don't know where that one came from. That was a bit left field. I liked cooking. It's probably the creative thing. I want to cook for everyone. So I'm going to become a food technologist. I don't know how I put 2 and 2 together for that. And then in the end, it just honestly just came down to I couldn't make my mind up. So I just went with something that I could apply to anything. So I was like, right, business management, that'll do for everything. Funnily enough, I ended up doing my second major. So my first major was strategic management, which is about growing a business. So you have to learn a little bit about everything when it comes to strategic management. That's HR, legal, finance, accounting, even marketing, all of the different facets and functions of business. And I ended up doing finance as my second major, probably because my mum has been a finance manager for a long time. So it's familiar to me. And I liked the numbers part because I like that you can see stuff and analyze it and do something with it, make decisions based off it. So I studied finance. And then I ended up finishing my degree as a business, not as anything actually. I have a degree in business management and finance. But what does that mean I'm equipped to actually do? Well, great question. There aren't really jobs out there for that as an entry-level job straight out of uni. So I moved to Perth. That was all in New Zealand. I moved to Perth to be with some family here, and I'd been diving a lot here because I'd always dived as well as being in the business world, or at uni, sorry. And then just through people that I met through diving, the opportunity started opening up. And there was an opportunity that came up working for one of the big banks in Australia to sort of skip over a couple of the formal programs, the grad programs and stuff like that, and go straight into working in business banking as a business banking associate. So I got to work with businesses and on the other side of it, reviewing their business plans, their strategies, their performance, their financial data to help assist with them borrowing money. So I did that. So I went into that world and worked my way up in a few ways and became the business banking manager. So I actually had some level of approval that I could structure lending and converse with clients and things like that. And that was the point for me when I was working with so many of these clients, small businesses in WA, and they were coming to borrow money and I'd say, what are you going to do with it? Oh, you're going to buy that for growth. You're going to buy some equipment or do this or do that. And then I'd say, well, how are you going to grow the sales in the business to warrant spending all this extra money? What marketing and advertising are you doing? Or on the other side of it, I would see in their financial statements that they were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on advertising, marketing, or like big numbers in comparison to everything else. And I'd say to them, what are you doing with that? How is it working? And they couldn't tell me. They're like, I don't know. Somebody told me it's a good idea and I threw some money at it. And then that's when I realized, I was like, I can help businesses in a way that is still using my skills in finance and things like that. But maybe actually I can be a creative. And so to make that decision to leave the corporate world and leave behind a really good standing career and like lots of growth opportunities and things like that, I actually had to go and seek some help. I was quite lost. So I went and worked with a psychologist and tapped into different things and understood different stuff. And at which point realized that I am a creative and I was not sort of honoring that side of myself. So to go back to uni in my sort of mid to late 20s with no income, which was hard because having a mortgage and then having another income, having a student loan and fees and stuff like that was not easy. But I think I just really knew that that's what I wanted to do. So I was just going to make it work. I had to sort of take a leap of faith to do that. So I went back to uni, studied design, and then teamed up. So creative thinking, design, marketing, and then the business side all came together. And it just felt just from one thing to the next, because I think because I had that certainty that that was what I wanted to do and that was what was lighting me up, I was really open to opportunities. And I'd been building, I think the key thing is I'd been building my network for so long. I've always really strongly believed in people and connections and networks. So from the day I landed in Perth, I had already made connections with people through the diving industry, and I'd been nurturing those connections. And so when I did go out on my own, it was just myself, and I was just offering some basic level design work and some marketing and website updates. I was getting phone calls. People go, "Oh, I've heard you're doing that now. Can you come and do it for us?" And so I just kind of have been running with it from there for the last nearly 7 years, 6 to 7 years. Yeah. Does that even answer the question? I feel like I went on about
No, that does. No, that's absolutely incredible. And I feel like that is such a powerful and courageous thing to do, to realize that the path you have chosen, even though there's aspects of it that you love, you realize aren't like fully fulfilling yourself, and you realize that it wasn't doing your full self and your passions justice, like that creative aspect. Because I found it so interesting as well that you have both like a really analytical and a creative mind. Like usually people tend to lean more to one and not the other, and or vice versa. But that's such like makes sense why you're such a powerhouse. You've got both sides. You can bring it together.
Well, I think a lot of it just comes down to willingness to learn. I think if you, I mean, I don't particularly enjoy finance. Don't talk to me about admin. I'm not an admin person by any means. So, my mum being a finance manager, she has been on at me since I started business from day one. Keep everything in order. So I don't particularly enjoy it, but I do appreciate the importance of it, and so I will take the time to learn it because I know that it can be used for something.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems as though you're not afraid to invest in yourself as well. So whether that be through like an actual like university degree, learning something new, going to like a psychologist, or engaging some kind of mentorship or whatever form that takes, which is really good. It shows you're quite driven. Very nice.
Yeah, you're right. I hadn't really thought about the investment piece, but there has been a lot of investment between mentors, coaches, programs, university fees, plus everything else, learning things like breathing exercises to keep your stress levels down and all these other things that when we're busy, ambitious people, we don't realize that it takes a toll on us in different ways. So I think like the level of self-awareness is massive. And I don't think I would have been able to learn it in my early 20s. I think I just needed a bit more life experience to start realizing the importance of these different things and where to reach out to for help. Yeah.
That's very true. I feel like a lot of people come to that point in their journey if they're a very ambitious, driven person where they will keep pushing themselves. There comes a point where either your mind or your body pushes back, and then you're like, whoa, okay, wait a minute. I now need to prioritize my wellness as well as my career. That's wild.
Yeah, you're right. And the thing that people say to me all the time, and sometimes I say it to myself too, is it's just like, I don't know how you do it all. I honestly get that comment so much. And I think at the end of the day, it's about, for me, obviously this is my personal experience, but I think it's about knowing where to sit and staying in your lane and surrounding yourself by an incredible support system. So having the right people around you that, and having that self-awareness of what you're not good at or what you really don't enjoy doing. And then, so if I work that little bit harder and achieve that extra thing, I can bring somebody in to help me and take that off me. So I've always had that mindset of, how do I build a business to make myself redundant? That's always been the plan. I'm not trying to build myself a job where I have to wear 10,000 hats. I mean, I definitely wear a lot of hats still. Yeah, I think we all know that. But yeah, it's always been a matter of thinking that's not for me. I can do it, but it's going to take me 3 times as long, and it's going to mentally drain me and it's going to suck my energy because it just doesn't align with what really lights me up. So recognize and being okay with spending money on that, because you have to, again, you're investing. So I'm not directly investing in my own learning, but I'm investing in freeing up my own time.
Yeah, it's still investment in yourself, but which ultimately, at the end of the day, that's kind of what it all comes back to. Yeah. What are some of the challenges that you faced in this journey? Because I can imagine as well, like, for one, deciding to pivot your career and go back to university in your late 20s, although a lot of people take that path, it doesn't make it any less daunting and scaring. Being a business owner in itself just comes with a array of challenges. So what are some of, I suppose, like the key ones you can pinpoint as being like, yeah, that was like a pivotal moment for me, and how did you overcome those situations?
So when my career first started in the finance world, I was like 22, I think, when I went into the bank, and I think I looked like I was 16. I did not look like a mature 22, right, in terms of looks. Thank you, Mum, for the great genes. No, but seriously. So I had the biggest imposter syndrome. For those who think that imposter syndrome is not a real thing, oh my gosh, it is such a real thing. And you know what? It's everyone that experiences it. It's not just females, and it's not just young females. But when I was a young female, it was so bad. It was that bad that if I walked into a room in a meeting room and sat down, and people just glanced over to recognize that I had arrived, I would go bright red. And they're not just face, like arms, everything. Like the anxiety was next level.
I had the exact same thing where, like, in my same thing, like, sorry to jump in, but exact same thing. Same, like, I was 21, 22, and it became a running joke in the office that if you looked at me and you said, go red, my face would go bright red, because I was so, like, anxious and on edge all the time.
Yeah, right? I think we just don't have that confidence in ourselves, and we're always worried about doing the wrong thing or what people might think, and being ready to respond, and it just puts you at that, like, on the edge the whole time. Yes, I used to make jokes of it too. I used to make a joke about how you could say blush and I'll blush, because I knew that just being a center of attention would make me blush.
Yeah.
So I think
so funny, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Imposter syndrome was the big one. I went to see clients when I was a business banking manager, so that was a few years on, and I was confronted by somebody saying, when does the manager get here? Why are you here early without the manager? I'm like, I am the manager. I also had the way people spoke to me. I know for a fact they would never have spoken to other different managers who perhaps been in the seat a lot longer. So dealing with that, being confronted with that, was quite hard. I did tell one of the bigger clients once that I have bigger balls than him, which was in a roundabout way. He turned around and said, "Oh, Emma, you've got bigger balls than me." I said, "Actually, yes, I do." Please remember that. It was actually more, I had to build rapport, right? This is the whole people thing. So this guy, just impossible. And you're because you're young, everybody thinks you're not capable. So he's already on the defensive and already thinks I'm making mistakes and sort of like having a go at everything. But in actual fact, there was no mistake made. It was the way he'd interpreted it. So building rapport with him, so sort of changing the subject to talk about fishing or diving, because I knew that that's what he's like, what he likes, and it's what I like. I was able to sort of break down that layer, and then actually he would start listening to me. So I think that's definitely been one of the big hurdles, is imposter syndrome. And then, of course, I had to face all of that again when I left the finance world and banking world and went into the marketing world, because, you know, I didn't come from the marketing world. And you're up against people in the industry who studied marketing off the bat. They have been doing it since they graduated. They've got years and years and years of experience in marketing. And I had to reinvent my own brand in terms of what I can do. And it, you know, you always underestimate how capable you are. And the best thing I could do was just get amongst different marketers and groups and things like that, and just see how they do it and how they work to help me feel comfortable. So yeah, imposter syndrome, big one. Juggling all the things. another massive challenge is just when you start something new or a new project or you're passionate about something, chances are you've got to juggle that on top of something else. You can't just go and stop working and stop paying your bills so you can focus on this. That's a common thing that many people will come up against if they are passionate about something. So yeah, that's definitely been a hard one. And I have a saying about glass balls. So you can juggle all the balls, but you've got to know which ones are glass, because if they break, if they drop, they will shatter and there's no coming back from that. So yeah, that's been a really big one as well, is learning all of that. There was something else that I thought of and I've forgotten it, but I'm sure it will come back to me. There have been many challenges. I've often said I could write a book about this last sort of like 10 years of my life. It's just been a roller coaster.
No, I can only imagine with how much you've managed to school. You've literally lived a life like what some people would do in their entire lives within the last decade. So that completely makes sense. I love that saying about the glass balls as well, as knowing which ones are going to drop. How do you find you really assess and prioritize those tasks? Because I can imagine that's a skill that's transferable from not just if you're running your own business, working in another business, or studying.
The most thought of analogy for me, and I refer to this frequently, is the big rocks theory. So you've got so you've got a container, you've got your big rocks in first, and then you've got your little rocks on top, and then eventually you can pour the sand in between. It will all fit in the jar. Whereas if you started with your sand and then you put your rocks in, then you've got your big rocks won't fit. So it's a matter of knowing what those big rocks are. And that, again, I have to check in with myself a lot. Look, I'm not perfect, don't get me wrong. It sounds like I've got my shit sorted. I'm on that journey. But journaling often was a hard habit to get into, and I still struggle with it from time to time. But I find now I start to crave it after a little while. I'm like, I just need to defrag, take everything out of my mind and put it down and sort and organize. And I kind of cluster my thoughts and I cluster into different themes. And then that's when I go, okay, that I need to focus on that. That's my big rock. And sometimes I'll break it into smaller bite-sized pieces where it's like, that's my big rock for today or for this week or for this month. I think it's a huge trap that's easy to fall into, of looking too far ahead or trying to stay too focused on the long-term vision. The long-term vision's important. I definitely appreciate that. But sometimes if you're too focused on that, it can actually feel too overwhelming, and it's all important. So that bite-sized piece is key, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel as well like the reflection piece, like with the journaling, is really important because that allows you to have a clear mind and a clear space where either you're not like super fixated on the long-term vision, or you're so stressed with the day-to-day stuff that you can't see it. It just removes you from everything, and you can look at it as if you were like a third party.
Exactly. And that's just reminding me of what the other big challenge has been, and that is being comfortable with saying no. That has been a massive challenge. I literally, this year, like in the last couple of months, I've still been confronted by that, because it's not nice to either disappoint people or upset people and things like that. It goes against so much of who we are, especially in our feminine energy, where that's that nurturing, caring side. But at the end of the day, if you don't do what's right for you, what fits with your big rocks, then you're actually doing a disservice to everyone. You have to protect your energy, and you have to protect. And for me now, I'm getting probably more and more defensive in terms of protecting my team. So for me, that looks like keeping myself well so I can do the best for my team and be there for them as well, rather than just sort of saying yes and doing everything because people think that you should. And again, is that should thing. It's the head. It's like, I should do that. So should is a bit of a trigger word for me. It makes me stop and think, hang on, is that actually what I want? Yeah. I can walk into a cafe. This is something the psychologist taught me. She pointed out to me. She goes, when you walk into a cafe, what do you order? What do I order? I was like, oh, like a skinny cappuccino. She's like, why do you order that? I was like, because it has the lowest amount of calories. And she's like, okay, so forget the calories. What would you order? I was like, oh, an almond milk mocha with marshmallows. And she's like, and there you go. That is an extreme example. Like, you can see it right there of like what you do in your day to day because you should, versus what actually lights you up and brings you joy. So not saying you always have to go for the marshmallows, but is there, like, being aware of this, how many times in our day and how many times in our lives are we having this huge gap between what we should do and what we actually really want to do?
Yeah, and I feel like that pressure of all the shoulds as well can just be so overwhelming sometimes, where you feel as though you're just carrying this huge weight on your shoulders of everyone's expectations of you. Whereas in reality, the only thing you need to worry about is what's going to fill your cup and what's going to make you happy. But that's quite a long, never-ending journey, I think.
Oh,
that piece.
absolutely. So yeah, learning what I actually had to Google at one point, what are boundaries? I was like, I think I need some boundaries. And I'm like, how do I do this? You know, where do I start? Because it's not easy. Like, what do you say no to? And you know that whilst people are like, oh, it's okay, like, they're still disappointed. And so you have to learn to be okay with that because you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. So what did come up in your Google search, or what are some of the tactics that you've been employing, I guess, when it comes to setting boundaries? Because especially if you're sitting in your feminine energy, being raised as like female in this society, it is really difficult because you are taught time and time again to not have those boundaries. Instead, you should try and please everyone and take care of everyone and not yourself.
Exactly. And I'd love to say that I've worked it out. I haven't. I'm still working it out. But just thinking about it, I think the biggest thing for me has been having the right people. So my inner circle and my support network of friends, family, business friends. You have those people, mentors that you can go to and say, this is what I'm up against. Can you sense check this for me? Am I overreacting? Am I thinking of it the wrong way? Just helping to bounce it around. They won't give you the answer because they're just there to help guide your thinking, and they'll turn around and go, well, what about this? How does that make you feel? And this and that. And you get to that point where you realize, okay, that's all right. And having that sounding board, I think, is great. So the first part of it is being aware. So being aware of, I don't think this is going to be the right thing for me. And then the next part of it is there some other way that you can get some advice? And I do find the more that you come across this and the more that you start doing it, the more natural it starts to be. And you almost recognize it happening before it happens. So you can nip it in the bud before you actually get to that point where somebody's expecting something of you.
Absolutely. Do you feel as though reflecting on those boundaries and your own needs and starting to prioritize what you want and letting go of the shoulds, was that the thing that sparked you from like leaving your first career in business banking, or was it more of like you having those external people, the support network maybe telling you, or was it more internal, or a bit of both?
It's hard to say, actually. I think, yeah, I couldn't actually I couldn't pinpoint that. I think it's just been, it's all kind of blurred in there in different ways.
Yeah, it was probably just a natural progression, I think, onto the next part as your skills grow and as you grow.
Yeah. And I think as you fall into something that you really enjoy doing and you start to build a life that you really appreciate, you start to become more protective of it. I think maybe that's what it is I'm holding on to something because I really want that. And I can see, and I've also seen the negative effects on so many people around me and on myself as well. So I'm like, I don't want that. So you can visualize it. So at which point you can recognize it.
Yeah, that's such a great quality of a really good leader as well. And you can obviously tell that you've put such a huge amount of effort into developing your leadership skills. When was something that you started to work on? So like when you started to realize the importance of building those leadership skills and the role that would play in your career?
I think my leadership skills started very, very early. Probably, yeah. Some would say too early.
10 years
I
old.
say that because I was literally the bossiest 5-year-old ever. I've always naturally preferred to take the lead, which comes with its own challenges. That's not necessarily perfect either. So I remember being in Pippins. Did you guys have Pippins in Australia, like Girl Guides?
Oh, what is it? Oh, it's Girl Guides. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have Girl Guides. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're Brownie when you're older and you're Pippin when you're little. Completely forgot about this. So I was a Pippin. So probably all started there, because anytime you had a group of people and you know, the teacher or the person would be like, do this, and nobody was doing it. And I'd be like, excuse me, you need to do this. Put your hand up. You didn't put your hand up. I think I've always had that in me. And then it started to unleash a lot more as I got probably towards the end of high school, going into cafes. I like achieving things well. I'd say I probably am a high achiever, which also, again, as it sometimes holds you back. But I'd go into a cafe and I'd be like, oh, we could do this so much better. You know, like, let's do this faster. Let's do this more efficient. Let's get everybody working together. I very much vibe off other people. So I'm like, the mood in here, I'm not feeling it today. Let's turn some different music on. Let's encourage people. Let's motivate people. Let's do an awesome job together. Like a bit of a cheerleader in some ways as well. So that really played out in the hospitality scene. And then moving through uni, of course, all the group assignments, moving into diving, same thing again. I think for me, the number one thing for leadership, absolute number one, is the ability to make people feel included and empower them through that inclusion. And I have seen that play out in every single job and industry that I've worked in. So the diving industry, for example, I love the diving industry because it's all about creating a sense of belonging and community for people. And so if you can do that, you have customers for life as a result, but you're not going out there to get customers. But it's the same with every single thing. So I think, that bringing people together, making people feel welcome, and especially the ones who have always been a little bit left out or not the typical person or things like that. I love helping those people come in and feel included. So
that's really beautiful.
I'd say that journey started a long time ago. Between that and being a little bit bossy, because I like to make things happen.
You said that comes with some challenges as well. What type? Because I suppose at this stage, you can see the great leader you've blossomed into, and having this perspective of wanting to bring people together and empower them through that inclusion is just, that would be really transformational for people. But you said that there was like a bit of that's the light. There was a bit of shade as well, that it came with its own challenges being a natural leader. What were some of those challenges that you faced?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the tall poppy syndrome. So to take the lead, to put yourself out there, to differentiate yourself from others, is you're going to get shot down. You know, I had, even when I was actually, all these things are coming back to me now. It's amazing. I think I was only like 12 or 13. I was helping out on a weekend at a sports thing and in the canteen because my brother was doing it. And so I was helping out because I like to do things and be helpful for people. And one of the other teenage girls didn't like that I was there and probably doing a better job than she was. And she told them that I stole money. It was like completely made up, like I so far from the truth. And she accused me of stealing money, and that went to like the club committee and my parents. And I was like, I didn't steal anything. So like things like that, when people feel threatened. So you've got people who are not driven and ambitious, and they're confronted by somebody coming in who is. And how those people react can vary a lot. And sometimes that looks like them intentionally not including you, so you feel left out. Sometimes it's snarly remarks or eyes rolling. Oh, she's talking again. It's complaining or it's actually it's really sad how much negativity there is towards people putting their hands up and sort of taking the lead. But the other side of that is what I've come to realize now, which I guess could only happen over time, is I've come to really appreciate that those people who react like that are actually not my people. It's, that's more of a reflection on them. And I feel for them. I'm like, I'm really sorry that you don't have that confidence in yourself, because I think you could also do something amazing. So you start to recognize that you don't need to take that on and feel bad about it or guilty or dull yourself down because of all of these other people. And that really played out going into business. It's like putting yourself out there online and things like that and taking the lead that way. I still don't do it anywhere near as much as I should in terms of having an online presence and putting myself forward. It's just easier sometimes to just play a background a little bit and let other people fly your flag.
Yeah, that is very true. I think that's one of the big challenges as a business owner, is that you, especially when you start to develop a team, you get to a point where you realize it's not about me, it's not my brand, it's the business's brand, and the team is the one that is driving that. So it's kind of like releasing that a little bit.
Yeah.
But just going back to what you were talking about around realizing that those types of people are not your people, I feel like that's such a powerful way to deal with a lot of people's own projected maybe insecurities or even internalized misogyny as well, because sometimes we can find that if there was two people in the room, if it was you and there was a little boy, maybe if your brother was the one taking the lead, he would have been praised. You're doing such an amazing job. Maybe that wouldn't have been the case, but we can make an educated guess. It probably wouldn't have been accused of stealing money,
Yeah.
And a way of dealing with that is just being like, these are just not my people. That we have a values misalignment. You're not a bad person. We are just different. And we don't need to be in each other's orbits, and that's completely fine. You can do your thing, I'll do my thing.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, are they in my inner circle? Do I really care what they think of me? No, because they're not in my inner circle. My inner circle is the ones that I actually care about. They're the glass balls. So at the other ones, they're rubber balls. They can just bounce off. Wow.
Bye.
I mean, like it sounds simple when you put it like that, but it's not that simple. And it's exactly the same thing when you're in a career, not necessarily running your own business. You go into a career of some sort in an organization, and you're ready. Like, you are ready to take that next step, to take on that extra responsibility, to take the lead, put your hand up and grow and thrive. But you're not sure exactly how well that's going to go down with your colleagues, or what they're probably not going to like it if you push at that bit harder. So you tend to bring yourself down to their expectations. And then how do you grow in your career? And then at the end of the day, what do you want? Do you want to be in that role in another 2 years' time because you haven't pushed yourself and be vaguely friendly with people? Yeah. I think, just knowing that, who cares? Like, you do you. You do you is my favorite saying. I'm going to get that tattooed on me. You do you.
I love that. I say that all the time, except I add a boo on the end. I'm like, you do you, boo.
You do you, boo. Absolutely. You do you, boo. Yeah. And if they don't like it, that's okay, because you're not going to please everyone. You're not going to be liked by everyone. And to face that reality when you're in your early 20s is hard. But the sooner you face that and the sooner you don't care, life is so much better. Work is so much better.
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to come to that realization. And then secondly, be okay with that realization as well. Just be at peace with it. Like, it's all good. I'm not for everyone, and that is okay.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying be mean to people or anything like that. I'm saying just be authentically yourself.
Yeah. I think that's actually a really good point as well, because some people can take that too far and they can be like, I'm exempt from any kind of self-reflection or personal growth because I am me. There is a difference. It's more like, always still look for those opportunities for feedback and personal growth and development. But still just stay authentically to yourself. Like, they can like coexist very happily.
And then the final thing on the boundaries piece, I would love to point out from what I've seen and what I've experienced myself, is that when you're applying boundaries, or when people are applying boundaries to you, I think the key ingredient that is so important is empathy. Too many times I see people almost just like putting up this front, or like just being very single-minded or closed-minded. They're not actually considering where the other person's come from. So yes, definitely put the boundaries in place, but have some empathy for the situation and for the other person. And this is where the importance of communication comes in. It's how do you communicate that boundary? How do you say it? What's the best way to communicate that? Yeah. Yeah. So don't.
Yeah, that is really important.
Don't go, right, boundaries. Googled it. This is what it told me to do. I'm just going to do it.
That's so true, because when you set a boundary, if it's done well, again, with the right person, with someone whose values aligned, with someone who is in your inner circle, this is the type of person I'm discussing. You set a boundary well, it will improve your relationship, it will improve your rapport, they will have more respect for you, and it'll probably deepen your relationship. If you don't do it well, if you don't explain yourself, if you don't consider them as well and the impact it'll have on them, it can maybe sometimes hurt a relationship, which is what we're all scared of, which is why we don't do it in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
That's
boundaries.
So true. Boundaries, we love it. One of the other things that keeps coming up is your drive, your motivation, and you're talking about it then, like, don't be afraid to stand out. Don't dim your light. Like, if you want to push forward and if you want to put in 110% and move the dial and move your business or your career forward, do it. And it's become very clear throughout your journey that you are someone who's really highly motivated as well. So where do you think that comes from? Have you always been that way, or from 10 years old? Like,
it's actually such a good question. It's something I'd actually like to learn more about myself as well. I think there's definitely some element of genetics there, because I look at my family. I mean, like, I'm incredibly proud of my brother. He's younger than me, and he's doing great things as well in his life. And you sort of like look at where we've come from. I think we've come from a mindset growing up of like, if you want something, just make it happen. That's just like being ingrained in us, is it's in your control. So and another one of my favorite sayings is, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So we've been brought up in a way, I've been brought up in a way that is about taking action and not waiting, and being proactive about stuff. So I think that's probably a big part of it. The other major motivating factor, which I've had to really look to a lot over the last couple of years, going through different growth phases, is the long-term goal. It's like that long-term vision. What is life going to look like when I'm 40, when I'm 50, when I'm 60? Like, what do I want my life to be? How do I want to live my life? And visualizing it. Like, I can actually see it. And I know I can see what that day looks like. I can see what people are there. I can see what my boat looks like.
Yeah.
But there's like lifestyle in mind. And where I want to go and what I want to do. And so that's fueling me too, because all of that requires the business to operate so it's financially viable, but also not dependent on me on a day-to-day level. So I think that motivates me. And the other massive motivator would be, of course, seeing progress. So when things work, and sometimes it's hard to actually realize that it is working, or to stop and see the small wins. It's really hard to get deterred by, this is just so hard. I feel like I'm walking through quicksand right now. But you don't, like last year, you'll know, Aimee, I had a really hard year. Like, we had just a number of things come up and this and that, and it really challenged me. And come the end of the year, end of 2023, I was gutted, because 2023 is my number. My holding company that owns everything is called 23 Fathoms. That's a story for another day. 23 was my number. And I'm like, 2023, it's going to be my year. Like, it's going to be perfect. All these things I've been planning, all this, it's all going to come to fruition. And, pick all these goals. And honestly, like, I felt like I kicked none of them. I ended the year going, what on earth happened? Did not go to plan and all this sort of stuff. So when at the end of the year, and then I stopped and I reflected over the Christmas break, and I took time out and I went, sorry, world, like, not talking to you. I'm over here just spending time by the sea. And on reflection, I realized how much I'd actually had achieved, and most importantly, how much I'd learned. So it was interesting because I walked away from that feeling really positive, because I was like, actually, I think 2023 was my year, because my mindset has completely shifted. My capabilities has shifted. Like, all these things actually aligned. I was like, well, look at that. Like, the definition of success was just different to what I first thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And how do you define success?
Oh,
a big question.
It's a huge question. And I don't think any two people are the same. I think, for me right now, and it will change as I go through different phases in life, but for me right now, my definition of success is for me to have multiple businesses running smoothly. It's, without the stress and the headaches and the panic, and I just want calm, controlled environment, with good things happening with good people. And so when things don't feel calm and smooth, then I don't feel like I'm being successful.
Yeah, I feel like that actually is a really good way to measure success as well, because there's a lot of things that would come off that too, because when things are calm and controlled and things are all running smoothly, you're usually a better version of yourself as well. You're able to show up as the best version of yourself, both in work, but also like to your friends and family, to your inner circle, and you're probably taking care of yourself better as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know for me, if I'm in that state and things are successful, my creativity is off the charts. Like, the ideas that I have, the passion and the excitement for what I'm doing is just like ping, 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 like all these things. I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, we can do that. And if I'm not in that state, it just feels like a constant grind, and I've struggled to come up with new ideas.
Yeah, it's like being in that flow state, what they speak about in Ikigai. If you set yourself up well and you're in that, everything is running smoothly, you're more likely to enter into a flow state when all of your ideas are just popping off and you're having a good time.
Exactly. So I wouldn't say I am in that state, and because last year turned out to be successful in some way. I wouldn't say I'm there. I would say that comes in waves. And sometimes it's for me, it's important to recognize when you're riding that wave of uncertainty or feeling out of it, and go, okay, how do I get off this? I see that this is not good. What do I need to change to get back to my rhythm? And so it's almost like an elastic band in some ways. Like, each time it's getting further and further apart, just stretching out. But it's not easy, because a lot of it seems it's not intuitive. You should be doing this, but in actual fact, what you need to do is this. Like, I'm really tired, I need to go to the gym. How does that work? Or like, I'm really burnt out, I'm exhausted, I'm gonna have to go away for the weekend and go diving or mountain biking or wakeboarding. Like, that's all energy consuming, but it's different energy.
That's very true. What are some other ways that you can get back to that flow state? So if you feel like you're out of rhythm, so you mentioned diving, going to the gym, going away for the weekend, biking. Do you have any other, I suppose, parts of your secret sauce? And I call it a secret sauce because everyone's is different. Yes. But what does yours look like?
You're right. The recipe to the secret sauce. Okay, so the big one is adventure. So if I get my adventure craving ticked, I get my enthusiasm for everything back. So if I go and have that like really good ride, and like I think it's a bit of adrenaline as well. So I get that tick, and I'm like, yeah, I can do anything. And then, so there's that part of it. Then the other part of it is the calm. So sometimes, at the moment, I'm going through a real phase of float tanks and saunas. And intentionally don't listen to anything in the saunas. I just have quiet and I just calm and I just breathe. And the small things like getting home and putting on a salt lamp, not bright lights, and actually just enjoying more quiet time and more time to myself. It took me a long time to realize that I am an introverted extrovert. So I'm very extroverted in many ways, but I recharge alone. I need to have quite a little time by myself or in a very quiet environment to recharge. So now I know that about myself. It helps.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many people who think that, oh, I must be an extrovert because I'm charismatic or because I like being around people. Introverts don't not like being around people. They just need time by themselves to recharge, to fill their cup. That's the key difference.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I love that. I'd love to know, what are some of the biggest growth periods of your life? Because we've kind of spoken around them, and I could guess what they might be. Like, I don't know, moving country at a really young age, changing your career, go back to university, taking on like 4 or starting like 3 or multiple successful businesses and running all those in tandem. But yeah, I'd love to know from your perspective, what have been the periods of your life which have driven the most amount of growth?
Yeah, in terms of personal growth and development, obviously the business stuff is just next level in terms of what you have to learn and that sort of thing. But do you know what? If it's probably more on a personal level for me, the different growth periods. So my late teens, so from about 16, around the age of 16, things got messy, and I openly speak about it. I have no problems sharing as well. So my biological dad, has been an alcoholic with all kinds of mental health issues for all of his life. And my mum had to deal with that on top of holding down a job, raising 2 kids. It was never easy for her. And so growing up in that, so the turning point for me in terms of personal development was getting to that age where eventually she was actually able to leave. And so my brother and I were able to leave with her as well. But having to then face my dad, who has always been, I've always like daddy's little girl and like very close in some ways. And so he wanted me to become his support network to get through that. And at the age of 16, 17, that's a lot to carry. Not to carry his happiness, but the burden of his happiness. And I felt like I carried the responsibility for that. So I think that was a massive growth period, like going through that and then eventually coming to Perth. And that's one of the reasons why we're all in Perth is actually getting away from New Zealand and cutting ties in some ways. That's a story for another day. But that period and having to deal with that and dealing with him calling through to the bank helpline and like demanding to speak to me and threatening me, and that to disconnect from your happiness is not my doing, and to be okay with putting more boundaries in place and actually pushing back and saying no, and this is not okay, and this is not acceptable, and coming to terms with the fact that meant that I would have to cut off contact and things like that. So I think that was probably a really significant growth period for me in my life, and in terms of what I realized I was capable of, and facing adversity and all that kind of stuff. And then definitely the business thing, because when people start businesses, you typically, if you're going to start something, you've been working in a job of some sort and you've built up some cash, and you've got a bit of a pot of funds to support you to get you through. So you can invest in this and you can do that, and you won't earn an income for a little while and all that kind of thing. Or, they sell their house or they use their house to borrow money against to do that. Whereas I literally had nothing. Like I had a loan, I had a mortgage. That was what I had. So that was probably the biggest thing, is learning, well, yeah, sure, I can make anything happen. I can work 2 days a week at the bank and 2 days a week at the dive shop and study full time, and I can make this work. But the biggest learning for me was like, yeah, sure, I could do that, but is that actually a good idea? Is that actually if I was doing it again, would I think about it differently? Yeah, I probably would, because that was a lot. And I've seen myself start to just reduce the amount that I do take on, because I'm like, maybe, yeah, I could do it all, but do I need to, and do I want to? Yeah. That's sort of that was the big learning that I had recently.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think that probably all did originally start from when you were in your like mid to late teens and going through that incredibly challenging situation and having to grow up probably really quickly and learn that resilience, but also learn boundaries as well, because that would have become prevalent very quickly, that you needed to put something in place for yourself to protect yourself. But that also could potentially be where like a lot of your drive comes from as well, like the nothing changes if nothing changes. You can see the evidence of that in front of your eyes. You can see like, well, we can move country, we can just do it, like we can literally just move countries and we can start a new life there. We can make that happen if we want to.
Yeah, definitely. Really cool. And I think like the biggest thing that I took out of that whole what I thought was my career that was the problem, and I was like, I just feel numb, I just like nothing's lighting me up. And so, working with a psychologist to determine what is it about my career, what should I do with my life type thing, tying it all back to childhood and different circumstances, the pieces started to come together. I think the biggest, having been in fight or flight mode since I could walk has made me very good at very quick, like immediate emergency response.
Yeah.
I've come across that with incidences in diving and in business where like shit hits the fan and I'm like, right, we're flicking into like, get this shit sorted. Gotta stop swearing, my bad.
It's fine. I'm pretty sure I can swear throughout this.
Yeah, so it's interesting because you're like, I'm actually really good at that because I've grown up doing that. But to recognize that I don't want to stay in that state the whole time is the big learning.
Yeah, and that also kind of comes a bit back to, if you have done it for any previous alumni, they would have done an EMP before. But having a look at those strengths which are maybe overplayed. So that would be a strength of yours which is probably overplayed,
Yeah, that's exactly
bringing
right.
it down a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think like doing all these things, learning all this about yourself, doing like the EMP profiling and learning about Ikigai and all the different behavioral tools that you can use and personality tools and things like that. I mean, we all love hearing about ourselves. So we love doing these things, but having that awareness of actually knowing, understanding yourself more, so then you can understand how you feel and how you react in different situations and how that then works with other people. At the end of the day, it's all about people.
Yeah, that's probably going to be the most beneficial thing you can do for your career or your studies, is learn about yourself and then work on yourself and just really spend a lot of time self-reflecting. Yeah, that self-awareness piece is so important.
Yeah. And learn from others too. I really believe in that.
Yeah.
That whole investment piece, investing your time and invest your time. When you're young, you don't have money, you can't just go buying courses and this and that. Invest your time into being exposed to different people, being around different people, having conversations with different people. I mean, honestly, like work experience is so valuable. And some of the work experience I've done when I was at school. So, my mum was like, "You're going to do work experience." I was like, "Please don't send me back." It was awful. But the exposure I got. I mean, I was on a phone line where you wear a headset and it automatically rings. You don't have a choice as to when it dials a number, and it just rings. And I was ringing small business owners and asking them to do a 20-minute survey on insurance in a call center. Like, how do you think that's going to go? Like, who in their right mind wants to do that? I mean, small business owners, the busiest people I'm like, hi, just wondering if you've got 20 minutes to spare for a survey. And then they'd hang up on you, and then it would automatically start dialing again. Like, you have to put your hand up to go to the loo.
That's insane. And like, I feel like there are so many moments like that, particularly when it comes to work experience and internships. Like, how many of us have sat in work experience and internships and been like, this is terrible, or I'm not learning anything, or I'm just doing menial tasks, or I'm doing tasks that I really don't like. Like, I want to cut this out immediately. But there are so many valuable lessons that you get that you only see later after the fact. You just have to hold on faith that something good will come of this.
Yeah, you're so right. In the moment, it's so easy to be like, oh, I don't like this, or I don't want to do this, or this. But you're right, the learnings, and you take that forward with you. It is, at the end of the day, it's experience, and every experience contributes something.
Yeah, definitely.
You might find yourself talking about it in an interview one day.
Yeah, exactly. So true. Do you feel like the experiences that you've had have really kind of sparked your passion for the different causes that you're involved with? So, for example, investing in future female leaders is clearly a big passion of yours. Do you feel like those experiences that you've had have led to that, or is that something you've always intrinsically had within you?
I think it is probably, there's definitely something there in terms of the experiences, because for me, I always just had this burning thing in me and never really had an outlet for it. And I was like, I've always wanted to help in some way and contribute to the community. So I think that's why I'm so passionate about what we do with the Future Female Leaders Program, because we're tying in the social impact projects, and the ripple effect of those is huge. But also, for me, it's that connection and that belonging. So if you're at a school in a very remote location that has very few students, chances are, I mean, I'm sure data would tell us this, there's not a huge amount of ambition coming out of an environment like that. It's just the nature of that environment. So you're going to feel quite isolated if you have that burning desire in you to achieve something different. Who do you talk to? How do you bring that to life? So to be able to connect in and grow that network of your own from a young age. I know when you're 16, 17, it doesn't mean that much to you, but I can guarantee you, like, as soon as you sort of start going into different phases of life, you're going to be like, wow, I'm so glad I met that person, or have that person in my corner, or maybe I can refer to that. Very powerful. The diving thing was my community. It became my community. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about it, because it changed my life in many ways, the diving thing. And it opened up all these doors for me. Like, I've been so fortunate to be able to travel to so many places because of the diving that I've done. And again, because I've just made an effort to include people and have a personal brand in a way. People are like, you're reliable, you present well, you're enthusiastic. Yes, we want to take you to Japan to go diving and put you on YouTube.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. So I think that's probably where it all comes from. There's definitely a tie-in to my own experiences that make me so passionate about what I do.
Yeah, I feel like potentially even like the experiences that you had with being such a driven, hardworking, natural leader from a very young age, and having experienced tall poppy syndrome, which is so prevalent. You're now, both in the way that you're doing both with the work you're doing with FLP, but also just with how you run your businesses, you're creating an inclusive, welcoming environment for those types of people, like the type of environment that you didn't really get when you were really young, which is quite special.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you've actually just hit the nail on the head, because our next thing that we're launching for Huddle Up is a community. And I've got goosebumps now, because I've just realized how important that is to me. I didn't realize how, I was like, yeah, we should do this. But now I'm like, no, I want this. Like, I want to bring these people together.
I love that. That's so special. I can't wait to hear all about it.
Yeah.
So you're obviously a very successful woman, still so young to have achieved so much. What advice would you give to really young women who are just starting out their career, just getting into it, what would you want them to know?
I have so many things I want them to know. I'm like, grab that pen and paper. No. Okay, where to begin? First of all, I think don't ever feel like you need to hold yourself back for other people, I think is the big one. You don't need to conform. Absolutely be respectful and work within some parameters, but never be afraid of putting your own individuality or your own touch on something. Would be the big one. You don't have to have all the answers is the other one. You're allowed to change your mind. You can change your mind every year if you want to. Nobody's going to hold you to it. And so the analysis paralysis of, oh, I could do this, I could do that, or what about this and what about that? And like that whole thinking is so stressful and wearing. And at the end of the day, just make a decision and do something and put one foot in front of the other, and everything else will flow. And it might take you in a different direction, which is totally fun. Yeah. And then the other one, really the investment piece. Invest in yourself, invest in other people, invest in relationships and networking, and surrounding yourself with with the right community, and be brave when you feel like it's not your community. If you feel like you don't fit and you feel like it's frustrating, annoying, not lighting you up, not bringing you energy, then maybe that's not your community, and you've only got so many cents you can spend when it comes to energy cents. So use them wisely, I say. And then most importantly, give things a go. Like you don't know what you're doing. Nobody knows what they're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. Just give it a go, and you'll work it out along the way. And if you don't, somebody else will be able to help you work it out. If it's something that you actually really want to do, then you will work it out.
I love those. Those are all such valuable lessons. What do you think is a lesson? Maybe it's one of those, but what is a lesson that you have been taught by someone else along your journey that was really invaluable to you?
There are actually so many. I've learned so much from everybody. I think the biggest lesson I've learned is, it's actually when I think about a lot of the male role models in my career and in my business world, I've learned from them, because they're sitting in their masculine energy. They just do that naturally. Whereas for us women in business or in our careers, it's not natural for us to sit in our masculine energy. We have it and we can do it, but it just doesn't feel right. So I think the biggest thing I've learned from them is the power of actually being assertive and being confident, and a little bit of fake it till you make it. Nothing has to be perfect. I often think of my brother, because I'll be in situations where I'll overthink something, or I'll think it's got to be perfect, and I'll be like, what would he do? What would he do? I'm like, oh, he would have sent it an hour ago. He wouldn't have thought twice about it. I was like, well, I'm going to do that. Sometimes I've had to channel other people, or sort of think of it, take myself out, remove myself from it. Yeah, so I think that would probably be the biggest thing I've learned from other people, is the power of doing that.
Yeah, I love that. Like learning to back yourself.
Yeah, that's so good. Just run with it.
Yeah, great. So the next part, look, we have discussed it a little bit. We've talked about your secret sauce, like the things that really kind of keep you balanced. But do you have any tips specifically on navigating the balance between personal and professional life? Because that's a challenge that we face, whether we are studying in uni, TAFE, high school still, career, running your business, like whatever it is.
The only other things I could say about that is just you just need to know what's important to you. You need to have that clarity. And you need to be able to align that to, this is important to me, so I'm doing this. And I'm putting that time in and I'm putting that effort in because it's going to result in this. I think you really need to know what's important and the why. We talk a lot about the why in the program as well. Like, why am I doing this? Why is this important? Why do I need to spend my time here? Why am I juggling it all? If you don't know that why, you're lost. Everything's going to feel like hard work and you're never going to feel like you're getting anywhere.
That's so true. Yeah, Simon Sinek's Why TED Talk is like, it must be well over 10 years old now, surely. It's still so relevant and it's still one of the best videos I've ever watched.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think that's what you need to know. If you're going to juggle it all, you need to know why, and you need to know what the outcome is that you're aiming for, and have a bit of a plan. Like, okay, you're doing this, you're doing it really hard right now. You're juggling everything. How long is that for? Because if you don't know when the end is, that is disheartening. You can't keep that up. Like, nobody can run a marathon without having a finish line. You just can't. You just burn out. You just give up because you're just too far from it. So break it down and look at, well, okay, this is the next race I'm in. This is the next leg that I'm going to do. And sure, it sucks right now, but future Emma will be very happy, and future Emma's only 12 months away. So it's okay. And is what I want my time doing?
Yeah, it's keeping that future vision, that long-term vision in mind when you're kind of in the trenches and you're going through it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So as a successful female entrepreneur yourself,
you keep saying the word successful and it makes me feel, I'm like, oh no, I'm just on this journey.
Don't do that. Don't downplay yourself.
Isn't it funny how we do that to ourselves?
We all do it. We all fall victim to it. But as someone who has accomplished so much as a young woman in business, how do you see your role in empowering other women within the business world? So this is outside of, obviously, your literal role in Future Female Leaders.
Yeah. I think my biggest role that I want to play is to inspire and encourage. That's my thing. Like, if I can just help that person to take that step because all of a sudden they feel it and they want it, that's my role, I think. Yeah. I'm not really here to educate. I mean, I can, but it's mostly inspire and encourage.
Yeah, 100%. I think those are really powerful ways to empower people so that they know to do it themselves. It's like, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach a man to fish, same thing. And from your perspective as well, what are some key ways we can really work to foster a more inclusive and supportive environment for women in leadership?
The biggest thing is encouraging each other and cheerleading and supporting each other. And it sounds so obvious, but honestly, it's only in the last few years in my business world that I've started to actually see that happen. I didn't see it a lot in many different environments I worked in. There was a lot of women they can't help it. They get defensive. They go into that sort of attack mode or defensive mode, which is not helpful for anyone. And it breaks my heart. It actually makes me angry. It doesn't make my heart. It makes me angry. It makes me angry when we have female leaders in place, and it's almost like they've got something to prove that they're in the spot, and they have to do this and they have to do that, and they are completely unrelatable and just not easy to work for. And then they don't lead with empowerment either. So I think leaning into the feminine energy. Why do we feel like we have to put that aside? we're females. Like, we want to nurture, we want to care, we want to communicate. You don't need to feel like if you're working in a large organization that's predominantly males that you shouldn't do that. You don't need to conform and be like them. You know, I think that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, that's all about kind of, again, standing in your own truth, being your authentic self as well. Like, don't be afraid to lead in a different way that maybe your male counterparts aren't leading, and because that's probably going to be your strength.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. So I am so glad we finally got back around to this, because I've been dying to ask. Huddle Up community, future aspirations and plans for your businesses, I should say. What's on the cards? Tell me everything about Huddle Up community. What else is going on?
Yes, so the marketing huddle is what we're calling it. The marketing
I love
huddle.
it.
Yes. Yeah. So it is, I'm going to bring together all the isolated marketing professionals in Australia. So these are people who are very good at what they do or want to learn and develop, and they're in a career job where they're sitting in a business as their marketing manager, and they are the sole creative, and there's a lot of reliance on them. And I've always said that marketing is a team sport. So we're going to give these people a team to join and a community to be part of, so they can come together, have conversations, learn, continue their personal development. Companies will hold on to them longer because they're actually much more satisfied in their role and constantly learning. So yeah, that's the next phase for us. And for our team, our marketing support team, to be there for these marketing managers and be their right hand arm when they need it. If they need things done, so we can implement it for them.
That's sick. There's such a huge gap in the market for that, because there's so many people who are like, oh, should I go into an agency, or I go into, being like client facing, like working within a company? But if they choose the company one, a lot of time it's just them, and then they're by themselves, and it's a bit like, sometimes you wish you had someone to bounce ideas off and all of that.
Exactly. So in-house marketing is hard, and the community won't be closed off to just marketing professionals, because that's not inclusive. So anyone, business owners as well will fall under that umbrella too. If they consider themselves to be their marketing manager, then they can come on in as well. So
that's incredible.
Yes, that's the big one. Podcast as well. We'll be launching the Huddle and Level Up podcast. So that's going to be a bit of business, bit of mindset, bit of motivation, hopefully some humor. Gotta have a bit of a laugh sometimes, and we'll throw some marketing in there too. So yeah, that's the big one coming out soon.
That's awesome. I'm so excited. You've got some really big projects happening at the moment, but cannot wait to see them. That's going to be a fantastic evolution of what you've already created.
Thank you. Yes, it is. It's actually, I will say, it's actually quite refreshing and quite nice to be able to have this conversation with you and reflect, because it's not often that, like, it's quite uncomfortable for me to sit here and talk about myself for this long. I'm like, oh, surely I should be asking them, like asking Aimee all about her. I'm like, no, pretty sure this interview's about me. It doesn't, it's just not normal to do this. But when you actually stop and think about it, and you realize how far you've come and what you've done and what you've learned, and it's exciting. It really is remarkable what happens without thinking about it too much.
It is, yeah. And you always should take time to celebrate the wins, no matter how far you are into your career journey. It's always a good time to look back and be like, that was really cool what I did.
Exactly.
Okay, so last little bit, rapid fire round. Don't want you to think too much about these questions, just whatever comes to mind first.
All right.
So, first question, what is your favorite book that has influenced your journey?
The one that comes to mind most recently has probably been Traction. So that's,
read it like 5 times. Another one.
Exactly. Yeah. It just really, it really satisfies the strategist in me, like the planner, but also the creativity of what can we do. So Traction for building out, for scaling, growing, systemizing. Yeah. Bit of a geek.
I love it.
Yeah, that's what came to mind first.
Very good business book. I love it. And if I could take you back to young Emma, still maybe like when you're in that high school state and you're choosing like what to study and you're like, I don't know what to do, or maybe it was when you're in uni and you're about to go into your first professional job, what is one piece of advice you had wished you had received back then when you were just starting out?
I think the biggest piece of advice, and some people would have heard me say this before, but I just keep circling back to it, is you don't have to be serious to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
We just have this complex about us when we're young, and we think we have to just be seen a certain way and act a certain way, and like just have like be very serious all the time, and like everything's very important and very serious. You're allowed to have fun, and honestly, people like being around fun people. It makes you memorable. It makes you enjoyable to be around. So it's okay, again, being respectful of the environment that you're in, but yeah, you don't have to always be so serious to be taken seriously.
And last one, if you could have dinner with any female entrepreneur or leader, living or deceased, who would it be and why? She's iconic.
Mel Robbins. That is who I want to hang out with. I'm so fascinated by her thinking and what she's achieved, and she's so authentic. I watched a video from her on Instagram where she's like, if you struggle to get up in the morning, which I was like, thank you somebody for actually saying that other people have this problem. We don't all have to be morning people. But she's like, if you have a problem getting up in the morning, here's a little hack for you. You when your alarm goes off, you slink out of bed. So you're like, one arm falls out of the bed and then the other arm falls out of bed. And then your body kind of follows. And before you know it, you're on the ground and then you're crawling. So there's literally a video of her doing all of this, which I thought was hilarious. And she's like, there's psychology behind it. You're kind of like, well, and before you know it, you're up. And I was like,
that's so good.
Yeah. So yeah, anyway, I find her refreshingly authentic and very knowledgeable and really aligned with a lot of the stuff that she says and advocates for.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. She's pretty incredible. She's got a great podcast too.
Yeah. And if we can bring a dude, I'm definitely bringing Richard Branson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's a good guy too.
Yeah.
And just to finish off our awesome chat as well, what is one key message you would want listeners to take away from this conversation?
I think the key message would be, honestly, just thank you for being part of this community. If you are in here and you are listening to this, it means that you are part of the FFLP community in some way. And the contributions we see from this community are remarkable. They really are. The investment from everyone and the ideas, the motivation, everything. So yeah, I think that would be the one thing I really want to leave for everybody.
That's so true. And finally, where can our audience go and connect with you and learn more about your work and your business endeavors if they haven't already?
Yes, absolutely. LinkedIn. I am on the LinkedIn. So just look for me, Emma Burdett. Funny story, there's another woman in Dubai called Emma Burdett who has the same hair color and works in the female leadership space.
But it's not her, so you don't live in Dubai.
We often message each other about people connecting with us incorrectly. It's quite funny. So yeah, look for Perth-based Emma Burdett. So yeah, LinkedIn, absolutely. That's probably the best way to connect with me. And then of course I am also on Instagram, and Huddle Up Creative is the main website. So you can go and find us there as well. But yeah, go for LinkedIn. Easy to connect on there.
Well, thank you so much, Emma. I cannot express my gratitude enough for you carving out some time. This has just been such an enlightening chat, and it's been so wonderful to get to know your journey a little bit more. And I really hope everyone else has enjoyed this conversation as much as I have.
You too. Thank you, Aimee. I cannot wait to hear yours. I know that you've had some big adventures of your own. in your career too.
Yeah.
So can't wait for that one. Thank you for taking the time to do this, and love the questions.
That's good. I'm glad.